Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it. Hello, and welcome to episode number 2 of season 3 of The Shift Show. Today, we're going to talk about a very exciting topic: the 10 contradictions that the narcissist in your life does not want you to notice. My name's Adriana Bucci. I'm a certified professional trauma informed life coach who helps empower survivors of narcissistic abuse to heal, set boundaries, and live life on their own terms. You can work with me in my community membership by following the link at the bottom of the description. Let's get your shift together.com/community. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the contradictions. So, contradiction number 1: narcissists will absolutely lose their shit on you for, loading the dishwasher wrong or breathing wrong or whatever it is that they're going on about this time. You know, you make some sort of a mistake and they want to point it out for you and make you feel like an absolute failure. And meanwhile, they cry about how nobody's perfect when they're called out on their abusive behavior. So, this can cause so much confusion in the target because, you're seeing how much it doesn't make any sense, right? But the way that they start like weeping pathetically almost when they're called out on their behavior and they start going on and on about how no one's perfect, this, that, and the other, that is actually done on purpose in order to trigger your guilt so that when you feel guilty, you're easier to control, right? So that's something you really have to keep in mind. And just remember, like, when they're getting mad at you for loading the dishwasher wrong, just think about how ridiculous they're being, right? Because if you call them out for anything that they've done wrong, they're going to become a victim. And they do this literally on purpose to make you feel guilty. People who are in a state of guilt are easier to control. Now let's move on to contradiction number 2. So, narcissists, as you know, they demand respect, but they have zero respect for other people. Okay, so this is how they really create a power dynamic in relationships, whether that's, a parent, an adult child, or, significant other. It's really, they really just create that power dynamic. They make themselves seem so important and powerful and all that when they're really, at the end of the day, they're just people. They're just other people, right? And their opinion is just as insignificant as any other person's opinion, but they try to make themselves out to be like the authority on your life, which they are not. They're just whoever they are. And they have absolutely no respect for other people. Contradiction number 3. So they might tell you that you're too sensitive when you have a normal human reaction to abuse, right? And then they have a complete fucking meltdown when you point out reality. And reality usually does not, what's the right word to use here? The reality and their narrative don't match. And so that's what pisses them off because they just want to keep manipulating people. And, when they're abusing you and you're upset about it, you are upset like any normal human being would be because the things that narcissists do to people are very upsetting, right? And you have your normal human reaction, which they did on purpose. They want you to react. Remember, narcissists only want supply. And, they just tell you that you're too sensitive and you're not allowed to feel that way and blah blah blah. And this is just a way of them trying to gaslight you and make yourself small because if you are angry about whatever the narcissist did, like any normal person would be, and then the narcissist starts to convince you that you're wrong, you're too sensitive, you're being ridiculous, you're being way too dramatic, you're overreacting, you will instinctively repress that anger. And then you miss out on the message that the anger had that, hey, this person did something unacceptable or they crossed a boundary or whatever. And a boundary, an even stronger boundary, needs to be put in place. But When you miss out on that message, you start to internalize what the narcissist is saying to you, and then you're distracted from the actual issue, which is the narcissist's abuse. And you're focused on how you're too sensitive and you need to work on being less sensitive and just be able to take the abuse. And that distracts you from the actual problem, which is the abuse to begin with. Right. And then anytime that you point out the narcissist's behavior, like even if it's just like the tiniest little thing, they have an absolute freaking meltdown and, you know, they can't handle any criticism whatsoever. Like they're very hypocritical. Contradiction number 4. They will take credit for your accomplishments, but they will not take credit for the trauma caused. Now, this applies a bit more to narcissistic parents. So, if you're an adult child of a narcissistic parent, I'm sure you've been through this where you accomplish something and then your narcissistic parent tries to take credit for it. For example, when I graduated university, my mother took credit for that. I was the one who went to school. I was the one who studied. I was the one who, did all the work and paid for it like 3 times because she kept scamming me for money. And she still somehow took credit for that. And, meanwhile, she took absolutely zero credit for the trauma that she caused, which, you never want to expect a narcissistic parent to take any credit for the trauma they caused. You have to kind of create your own closure. And it's, it just sort of is what it is. So, yeah, it's really like the impact that this has on an adult child of a narcissist is, you know, the self-esteem and difficulty recognizing our own achievements. Even to this day, I sort of have trouble accepting compliments from people because it's like, oh, I actually did a good thing. That's cool because, I spent my entire life pretty much being insulted for everything and, told that I'll never amount to anything and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that example helps you to understand where this dynamic comes from. And they might even say something like, if you can draw or paint or whatever, they might say, oh well, if I didn't put that paintbrush in your hand when you were 5 years old, you would have never been such a great painter, right? So, they can remember what you did when you were 5 when it's something that they did that would help you get some sort of a talent, but they will not remember when they caused you any trauma, which is just very interesting, right? So now let's move on to contradiction number 5. They will send their flying monkeys to you and to tell you how worried sick they are about you years into no contact. Meanwhile, historically, before you were no contact, they did absolutely nothing to help you with whatever they're so worried about. So, chances are you were probably very depressed when you were not no contact with the narcissist and they were still enmeshed in your life and you tried to explain this to them and they mocked you or laughed at you or said that, they're the ones who's super depressed or whatever they can say to like, minimize your experience and make it all about themselves, obviously. And then years later, when you've gone no contact, you're living your best life, you're not depressed anymore because this person's not in your life anymore. They're somehow worried about you, right? So that is another manipulation tactic in order to make you kind of second guess your no contact with them, even if it's like years, months later. Do not second guess that decision. It's really just another manipulation tactic aimed at getting your attention and getting engagement from you and ultimately supply from you. That is the narcissist's ultimate goal at the end of the day. Now, contradiction number 6. So, if you call a narcissist out on something and they have no way to talk their way out of it or bullshit their way out of it, they will give you an entire life review of everything that you ever did wrong. And then they expect you to be weeping in despair for how you've caused them so much pain just for existing. Meanwhile, they don't remember any bad thing that they ever did. So, this can definitely cause so much confusion in the target of the narcissistic abuse, doubting themselves, doubting their reality. It's really a big form of gaslighting. And you just have to be really hyper aware of this because narcissists gaslight left, right, and center for the purpose of gaining control over their target. That's all this is about. Contradiction number 7. They condition you to second guess the consequences of every single action that you take, but they will pretend to be in extreme shock when they face the consequences of their own actions. For example, let's say they did abusive actions towards you because they're a narcissist. That's what they do. And then you, you know, you try to call them out on it. Or, well, no, you go no contact with them because calling them out on it did not work. And you know better that nothing is going to work with this person. And so you finally make the brave choice to go no contact and stop talking to them. And they're in extreme shock. And they don't second guess their actions, they don't second guess their abuse, they justify and explain it away and bullshit away as much as possible in order to keep you under their control. And then you continue walking on eggshells, and they feel so powerful and in control seeing you in that state. Contradiction number 8, they make you cry, and then they go ahead and they mock you for crying. So this is done to belittle and dismiss your feelings that they caused, right? And it, again, is just done to make them feel powerful and in control over you. It's, as you can see, hopefully, at this point, that the narcissist's life goals are absurd and ridiculous and useless. So, hopefully, this helps you to sort of take the narcissist a lot less seriously because honestly, these people are a joke. They they're not gonna change. They're not gonna change. Someone who's going to change has to want to change and actually put in the effort to change, and, it takes years and years, not pretending to go to, like, one therapy appointment and pretending that you're all changed. No, that's not how it works. So, you know, don't believe a narcissist who says that they're gonna change. Contradiction number 9. So, if the narcissist is ever upset about literally anything, they need to be consoled immediately by everybody who's in their immediate presence. And if you don't, so help you God. But when you're upset, they're going to go ahead and mock you or dismiss you or tell you that you're overreacting. So, this, of course, is another tactic that is used to maintain control and undermine your feelings. And, this is just what they do. It's just part of keeping that mind fuck alive and well. Contradiction number 10, narcissists make rules for you to abide by, and these rules make absolutely no sense sometimes. And then they break rules all the time, right? Like it's do as I say, not as I do. So, again, this is just done to maintain power and control over others and to escape accountability and, just feel like they're the king of the world or whatever. So, I hope that this list of 10 contradictions has been helpful. Feel free to let me know which one resonated with you the most. And yeah, these contradictions can manifest differently in different specific relationship situations, but, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks with your particular one. And if you are looking for any additional resources in order to help heal from narcissistic abuse, I would invite you to join my community membership. The link is in the description here. You can also subscribe to my podcast. I have this option available now. There's some great episodes on how to do the inner work on a deeper level. That's for subscribers only. So check that out as well. And yeah, I'm just super excited that this podcast is back up and running. And again, if you're interested in joining the community, the URL is listed in the description. It's letsgetyourshiftogether.com/community. It's very affordable. You can get started for less than $1 a day. You'll get access to all of my amazing resources, courses, live events each month, and a lot of fun stuff. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I really appreciate it. And I invite you to share your own experiences or questions about narcissists contradicting themselves in the question thing here that I don't know if I'm doing this properly. I'm trying to learn technology, but there should be a way for you to comment or something. All right. That's it for today's episode. I'll see you next week.